What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, back with your Week 15 best bets. This time for my favorite totals of the week, my over-unders, my 5 favorite bets. Over or under? That's what I'm going to let you know in this video. Before I give you my favorite over-unders, make sure that you do spike that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for weekly NFL best bets here on the Bottom Line View. Also, in that comment section, let me know your favorite over-under of the week or your best bet of Week 15. Let's get rolling with the over-unders. Remember that you can check out all of my bets exclusively on Patreon. Link in the description, where I give my patrons my bets that I actually place every week with my real money. So check that out in the description and the pinned comment. My first total is over 45.5 in the New England Patriots Indianapolis Colts Saturday night game. I understand that many of you are probably thinking, whoa, Mitch, what are you talking about over? The Patriots have the best defense in the NFL. The Colts have a rushing attack, which means usually a lower scoring game. And don't the Patriots not trust their quarterback? Didn't they run the ball 1,000 times versus the Buffalo Bills? Isn't this an under, Mitch? No, this is an over. I actually think both of these offenses are underrated. I think the Colts defense is overrated. I think the Patriots defense is fairly rated, but that's besides the point. I believe that the Patriots are going to come out with a much different game plan in this game. I think they are going to attack the weakness of the Indianapolis defense, which I believe to be the passing game. The Colts play a lot of zone coverages, and typically throughout Josh McDaniels' career as an offensive coordinator, he's been very good at setting up his quarterback for success, whether it be Brady, Cam Newton last year, or Mac Jones so far this year. These players and these offenses for New England really feast on heavy zone coverage, cover 2 defenses that are going to play soft. They're going to let you get the underneath. Well, that's exactly how New England is built as an offense. They want to dink and dunk you to death. That's what they do in New England. The Colts are also one of the worst teams in the NFL defending tight ends. Hunter Henry should have a big game down the seam in this one, as well as Jonnu Smith making magic underneath. I could see Mac Jones having one of his best games of his career so far in this game by moving the chains with short but efficient passes. I think the most underrated part about the Patriots is their passing attack, a passing attack that since week 4 ranks first in first half EPA per pass. So New England very underrated in that regard. But on top of that, Ramondre Stevenson should find a little success, especially with the Patriots possibly playing pass to run, right? Not necessarily run to pass, but open passing to open the run game up later in the second half. I think the Colts, on the other hand, are very, very efficient as well on offense. I think they can get a bit of push on New England in terms of the running game, but I do see Frank Reich, a coach who has had success versus Bill Belichick in the past, being able to possibly find some different ways to attack the Patriots linebackers in pass coverage, or just find creative ways of moving the football that might really not necessarily be there on paper, but Frank Reich has always kind of put together good game plans versus the top defenses and found the little niche spots to attack. And New England does have a very good defense, especially pass defense, but I think this game being played in a dome, the pace of New England's offense, upping the tempo, will keep the Colts from really sustaining much of a run game, or either team just being totally bogged down and just running the ball. I feel like it's going to be an open game, a much more open game than people think. And I think New England probably wins a little bit of a higher scoring game than people are anticipating here. So I like this environment for an over, especially coming off the bye week with the offenses to have extra time studying these defenses. So I've got the over in the Saturday night game. Should look for a very exciting Saturday night. Now, to Sunday, we have the San Francisco 49ers and Kyle Shanahan once again with another over. He got us last week. It took overtime, but it happened for us last week. That was one of them that hit for us. The 49ers are continuing to be a little bit underrated and undervalued as an offense, while they continue to be a little bit overvalued as a defense. Kyle Shanahan has put together good game plans week after week after week to attack different defenses, and it will be no different versus an Atlanta Falcons defense that you can do just about anything you like. Do you want to run it a little bit? Sure, why not? Do you want to pass it a little bit? Yes, you can definitely do that too, as long as you don't throw it at AJ Terrell. And personally, I believe that the 49ers are going to be more high tempo, more passing, which means more plays, which means more offense and more points. It is simple. Because they don't have Elijah Mitchell, Eli Mitchell, they don't have that man in the backfield, it means more Brandon Ayuk, more Deebo Samuel, more George Kittle, more Jimmy Garoppolo dropbacks and passes. And that means probably more points, and the 49ers less so being able to control the tempo and pace of play that way, where typically they might get out in front of Atlanta and just run away and run out the clock. I don't think they'll necessarily be able to do that with Jeff Wilson, who really hasn't been great since returning from injury. So you look at the Atlanta side, a defense that's not great, but a quarterback that is definitely experienced, especially when attacking defenses a lot like San Francisco that he's seen before. Dan Quinn, his old coach, played a similar defense. Now, the 49ers have slightly deviated from their typical cover threes more often, but Matt Ryan had a lot of success versus similar personnel in 2019, actually beat the 49ers in San Francisco. I expect this time, if the 49ers get out in a lead, I expect Matt Ryan to throw his team back in it and be able to dink and dunk versus a pretty weak secondary in San Francisco, a heavy zone defense. Matt Ryan is very good at reading those zone defenses, and like I just talked about with Mac Jones, being able to be accurate in between those tight windows and getting the ball down the field that way. Also, you got Cordell Patterson and Kyle Pitts, who could prove to be challenging matchups really for a San Francisco defense. I feel like this is a game where the 49ers probably win fairly comfortably, but I wouldn't rule out Atlanta putting up a fight from their offensive side. So I see this as an over, and I think the 49ers continue to be undervalued, and I like the way Atlanta has recently been playing, especially offensively, finding their identity. So give me the over 46.5 in this game. My third best bet is the Buffalo Bills and the Carolina Panthers under 45. I like this under because you look at a Carolina Panthers offense who's really struggling. The quarterback position with Cam Newton or PJ Walker, it's just not going to happen in the passing game. The Bills are a good pass defense. I thought they weren't necessarily great versus Tom Brady and the Bucs, but I mean, it's very hard to deal with that offense. Certainly a step back. I thought the Bucs made that pass defense look a lot worse than it actually is in that game. And still, the Bucs were challenged to get into the 30s at home. So I look at a Panthers offense who doesn't have McCaffrey, which means their run game isn't as potent, which means, okay, that's not really going to be able to move the chains or consistent first and second down yardage. And then you've got a passing offense with a very inaccurate passer in Cam, a guy that doesn't really know much of the playbook, very limited knowledge of this offense, on top of PJ Walker, who is just not very good. So DJ Moore, also questionable, dealing with some injuries. Robbie Anderson's kind of been invisible all year long. This Panthers offense just isn't good. Their offensive line is very bad. They're dealing with a road environment, a loud environment, a really tough environment in Buffalo with a terrible offensive line that can't pass protect, that's going to take pressure, that's going to cause interceptions, it's going to cause turnovers, it's going to cause madness, it's going to cause stops, it's going to cause punts. So ultimately, Carolina is just not going to be able to score very many points. On the flip side, you might be asking, well, Mitch, Buffalo could cover this. I mean, look at their offense. They're phenomenal. Well, here's the thing. The game's in Buffalo, right? So that could also mean there's some weather here. Whether that's cold, that does have an impact. Trust me. Playing sports in the cold is definitely a little bit more challenging to get up, to get that energy to score points. It definitely has a factor. On top of that, weather, rain, snow, wind, that could be a factor in Buffalo. It always is. It always can be. Now, the Buffalo Bills offense is pretty darn good, but what they are is they're one-dimensional, and Carolina is actually pretty darn good at defending the pass as a pass rush and a secondary. Still got Stephon Gilmore, Brian Burns, Hassan Reddick. They've got playmakers both in the secondary and in the front. Where they struggle is defending the run, which the Bills are not very good at running the ball. If the Bills are running the ball, it means the clock is running, and this probably goes under. I think the Bills are able to slowly but surely break away from the Panthers, but it's not going to be necessarily easy on their front. I just don't see the Panthers passing the ball successfully enough to cover this as an over. So I like the under in this game, under 45 Panthers-Bills. My fifth best bet is the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Tennessee Titans, over 42.5. This is just a low number in my opinion. We've seen these two teams play in the recent past, and these games just seem to be a little bit dramatic, crazy, wacky things seem to happen in this matchup. I could see the Tennessee Titans on the ground having some success versus a Pittsburgh defense that struggled to defend the run. I could see definitely TJ Watt in this front just destroying Ryan Tannehill, which might cause turnovers, which might set up the Steelers offense in good field position as well. And I could see Ben Roethlisberger having success passing the ball in this game to his receivers. The Titans are dealing with a lot of injuries in the secondary. Deontay Johnson is a stud, very underrated. Chase Claypool can make plays down the field. You got Najee Harris. All these guys are playmakers, and I feel like, yes, Tennessee's offense hasn't exactly been great, but I do feel there's a little bit of a sense that both of these defenses are a tad overrated. So I'm going to take the over in this wacky, crazy AFC game that, sure, I mean, you're not really saying that either of these teams are dynamic offensively, and I could understand not going with this one, but I also believe that this game could low-key see some big plays from both offenses. They're kind of erratic. They're rather boom or bust. And sometimes those booms come in and play big, just as we've seen with the Steelers in recent weeks. So I think the Steelers come through. I think the Titans come through with an over 42.5. My fifth and final over-under best bet is the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings over 44. Now, typically these games are lower scoring, but this isn't the typical matchup. We're dealing with some COVID madness and coaches in the Chicago Bears. We're dealing with a Minnesota defense that's beat up. We're dealing with two offenses that are very big play oriented. They can create a lot of explosive plays on the offensive side for Minnesota. Dalvin Cook creates explosive plays in the run game. The Chicago defense is definitely beat up. All year long, they've been beat up. I also believe they're missing Eddie Jackson due to the COVID. So there's a lot of madness on both sides with injuries and COVID business for the defenses. I expect Dalvin Cook to create those explosive runs, Justin Jefferson to create explosive pass plays. Kirk Cousins always makes those downfield passes. And then you have Justin Fields, who's really an open field magician out there. I think versus a Minnesota defense that allowed Big Ben to kind of go up and down the field with just sort of backyard football, I think that's a good thing for Justin Fields, a guy that more thrives off of athleticism, more thrives off of, let's not really stick to the script, but let's go off script and make things happen. And I could see Chicago actually having more success here than people expect, especially at home in a primetime spot offensively. And I expect Minnesota with their offense to be able to match that. I think Minnesota's defense is overrated. I think Chicago's defense, due to the injuries, they're also overrated. Just a lot of madness in this NFC North matchup. Give me the over 44. Those are your best bets for the over-unders this week 15. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to Gronk spike that like button and subscribe. For more, make sure to check out the parlay plays as well as my best bets versus the spread. It's Mitch. Good luck. Peace.